Right now, I'd like to show you the 7 most effective ways on how you could fight the Sicilian defense. See, playing against the most popular opening of all is really not a very easy thing. And there are many reasons for that. Most commonly, the one that you would like to know about is the one that in Sicilian there are too many different type of variations and differences that you must be aware of. So it's if you don't know them, you might have a problem. So we're going to talk about what you really must keep in mind, how to play that Sicilian opening to the most of your success. The game we're going to see was played between Karpov and Dorfman. This is the first one. It was played in the USSR Championship in 1976. And actually, the game started off with e4, c5, knight f3, d4, trade, and g4. I have to say that the Keras attack has been always one of my most favorite systems. And the reason why is because, ultimately it is about white being able to line up this pawn, and really drive forward. The move of pawn up to the g5 can be done really well. The bishop to the g2 or even f4. It's a really easy plan to move ahead with. It's very interesting. Now with that in mind, of course, black has more to worry than white. Black played bishop e7. So white does g5, knight d7, and h4. And that's a wonderful, really wonderful setup. For one, it's because now we've got the idea of playing h5 and maybe even g6. But more importantly, there's rook g1. There is going to be, bishop e3. White is developing quite cool. That's what we're looking for in this position. Develop and manage the pieces in the best and the fastest way possible in this case. So what happens next in the game? Well, black plays knight to the c6, and his intention was apparently he just wanted to fight over this and just challenge the knight. Made sense, as he played it. And of course, as a result of this, white continues with bishop e3. Every attack's major initial goal always is to make sure that it gives us what I would call the right support. Support of an attack means usually getting more pieces across the center, developing around it, and making sure we finish off with our development. That's the most important. Finishing up. If you don't finish up with the development, it's likely not going to work. This is why you need so much to make sure that it's completed, because once we have it completed, it's going to make it a little bit simpler, a little bit easier to play. So this is why after bishop e3, black played the move pawn up to the a6 here. It was a normal move. But then white continued with queen e2. See, he has already situated the idea of playing towards h5 and everything, and he will do that. But before we jump in towards that, white actually needs to do, what white needs to prove is that he can develop his pieces around or across the center and eventually prepare himself for the attack on the king side. So this is a great way to go. Step by step. Remember, there is no tactical variations. Nothing tactically wrong with that. We just want to take the time and prepare a little bit strong. So white played with the move queen to the e2. Then black played alongside queen c7. And then the next move was alongside castling. Wonderful move, if I have to say. The rook is opened now. The bishop is good. We have the queen well developed. And the rest of the pieces are also coming out extremely fast. So it's quite good. What about black? Well, he's got some problems. Let's put it this way. And right after the move of longside castles, black played b5. So now there is a huge question to ask ourselves. Like, after black just does the move of pawn up to the b5, the really big question is, where are we supposed to go now? Like, we could open up the position. We could think about a sort of an attack or tactic that we can deliver. There are plenty of good moves, I believe. But we still need to answer the question of how and where do we get going. The move that white played was knight to the c6. See, when you're ahead in development, you can do two things. You can either stay with that position, which is okay, just stay a little bit longer and let it grow so you can decide what to do. Or the other possibility is try to think of an immediate challenge or a possibility to just make your pieces a little stronger and attack. See, that's what white wanted to do now. He exchanges on the c6, but only because of the knight x to the c6 and queen x to the c6, the very next move could be bishop to the d4. It's a perfect place for the bishop. It's challenging the g7. White maintains a grand command over the center, over the squares, and black is still going to be under some sort of pressure. That's how we do it. Very beautiful and very well played. With that in mind, apparently black had more things to be worried about, so he actually continues with b4. And what I want you to do is to think carefully about this position. The move that black picked up is good. It looks like if white moves back, black could finish up the development of his pieces, and he would be able to do this pretty effectively. The question is, where should white go right now? What should white do? Should he retreat? Where to retreat? Or how to basically continue? And I want you to pause and try to think about this position. What is white's best way to go? In Sicilian, when you're playing against it with white, you often find yourself in such a position where you have to make a decision. And it's not going to be an easy decision. In fact, it's going to be quite the opposite. A pretty critical decision where to carry on your play. Now, the idea is this. In most of the times, you are going to be very, very well developed and very improved. So what we must do if we'll get ourselves in a position of that kind is to open the position, to open it up. The best way, knight d5. Karpov knew that a Tau-like sacrifice of this kind is not only going to give him all the necessary files and diagonals and other possibilities, but it's also going to help us to provide, grand control for each and every one of the white remaining forces. And this is not just a nice looking move. It is a wonderful, beautiful tactical idea that just seems to leave black down. It's a brilliant thing. So what happened in the game after the move of knight at the d5 as it was played? Well, black took. He thought that he would actually be able to, capture and do well. But it wasn't like that. And it was simply because, actually, after the move of pawn takes to the d5, white can do bishop takes g7. We're setting up a pretty significant trouble. Black cannot castle. Literally every important piece that he's got is presently on a backside position, and we're doing great. Think about this. The most valuable of all in such positions is to make pressure, deliver different threats, and leave your opponent backward and behind. That's what we're going for. Bishop takes g7 was a perfect move. Now what about black? What can he do? Well, I don't think he's got many choices. He actually decided to play along with the move of rook g8 and then e takes d5. Queen to c7. So what's going on now? This is a really important moment. It's because basically black he's really trying to, protect. Let's put it this way. He's really trying to protect. He's trying to keep it together. And if he does succeed with that, most likely it's going to be a fine game. He would survive, right? Yes, he would. But now there follows bishop f6. Knight e5, bishop takes c5. Takes this f4, bishop f5, bishop h3. With the trade, we get the rook, we get the queen, we get the possibility to take the pawn, and we get the d6, which is a wonderful thing. It's like white is continuing to lead the attack, but perhaps a little bit more positionally, because really what we want is to maintain, remember that, keep the pressure over your opponent. It's not about winning with big moves. It is about letting him to stay there, to hang there a little bit longer, so that when, the attack comes out and everything goes, all these threats happen, he just cannot escape. So even he can defend for a second or two, the pressure is going to remain and the problems are going to stay. White's rook and the queen are making incredible problems. And of course, later on, after a couple moves, when the b3 happened, white was a pawn up and he gave away that pawn. to increase the activity. Doesn't have to do anything with the opening, but it's just good to see how through all this game, white was constantly dominating over and over and over again, so that black has no chance to escape anyhow. That was great. So I really like to tell you that this game had a lot of value, and the knight d5 idea is one of the most efficient ones you could pick to fight this opening. Now let's take a look at another instructive example. So this game I'm going to show you is played between Spassky and Darga. Now I think this is a really instructive game and has a lot of value to it. So let's discuss it together. Let's see what this one was all about. The game started with e4, c5, knight f3, knight c6, and I have to say that after d4, c takes to d, the opening was indeed very effective. White just got his knights, he's got the bishop, and we see it's a very simplistic opening development. I mean, one of the things that you got to understand is that in most times, you don't need a brilliant opening. You need a simple opening. Simple means less complicated, and less complicated basically is just what we need. Ultimately now, with that kind of a move in mind, black is a little down. He is a little bit in trouble, and white is going to use this. So a6, a3. Black played b5, bishop e2, bishop to the b7, and it was a wonderful thing because right after the move of bishop b7 happened, then surely, whites can play f4. And then take a look at this. So just like the structure and the situation here just shows you the strength and the value of it all. We've got a great looking, two great looking pawns on f4 and e4, a wonderful looking bishop on e3 that can step in forward. It's a perfect position. So where do we go now? What to do next? After that was actually played, black did the move of knight at f6, and his intention was clearly to attack against the center and create some challenges there. So what is white supposed to do? Advance, push up, support the middle? What to do? It's a great question. The most valuable thing that you must do in the position like that is to back it up. Back up the center. If you could do it this way, you will be very successful. But yes, that's why we're actually looking for the move of bishop to the f3. We have a great defense on e4. We're ready to castle, maybe even short side or play queen e2. Yes, the center of the board is the area where you need most of your pieces situated. So black plays d6, castles, and knight a5. So it makes a great sense to play that. We've got a very easy defense coming along. Black is trying to just challenge possibly on the moves like some knight c4 and things like that. So the real question is what to do now, or how to advance next in this case. Is it possible to do any kind of attack or a threat in this position? It should be, but we must find out the right way to do it. So what to do after knight a5 in this moment? First off, open. Whatever your attack or whatever the perfect circumstances are, you are not going to be able to use it unless you actually open up the position. That means literally anything must be done towards that idea. Yet before white goes on to open, this is a very valuable idea. Before he does it, he sets up even more. To some, it would be enough to play a move like e5. They'd say, okay, I'm better, black is a little behind, I've got to do it. I'm going to lose my chance. And that would be fine. However, to white, he actually realized that nothing is going to work as well unless we find a way to get this queen and those rooks out of the way so that they could support and they can do things really nice. So queen e2, knight c4, and now here is my question to you. White's got a good looking knight, nice pawns, the bishops are good, the queen is developed, only the rooks are not in play, I think. But we can get them, can definitely bring them forward. What should white try to do in this position? What is white's best method? See, if you're ahead, opening is necessary. You've got to give your pieces the ability to open and attack, and that should happen as quickly as you can make it. as quickly as possible. The move white picked up to do now was just about e5. Look at that. Black takes it. There's going to be the inevitable knight takes to the b5 coming up. It's a brilliant idea because the moment we have that done, we're going to attack against the queen. We've gotten the pressure against this knight. So 8x to the b, knight x to the b, queen d7, knight x to the queen takes to the c4. Just look at that. It is terrific. It's a really great idea in this type of position, and it's a very, very valuable thing. Keep the attack and follow up. It's powerful, it's dangerous, and it's threatening. We could follow. So, see, always the idea is this: a sequence of forcing moves in a row is going to give you the chance to really lead up your attack in an incredible speed. And then we don't have to worry. After the queen takes to the c4, we got that knight threatening to go to the c7. So black plays rook c8, queen to the b3. Take a look at that. You see, this is one of the most efficient ways of playing this opening. It's not about one or two tactics. It's really just the overall idea that if you exchange the pawns and you open up the position, your opponent, in this case black, is not going to have any time to make a complication. It's like he's not going to have the time to even finish up with his development. So after queen b3, black plays, not sure what he can do, but he's certainly not going to have a good position after rook d1. For this reason, black picked up to do something new, like an exchange on e3 that makes for a better look. Of course, after that, white plays knight takes to e3, queen takes to the e3, d takes to f takes to knight d7, exchange, capture, and queen f4. The truth is that all white wants to do in this position is to increase the pressure by creating more threats and more problems towards black. More threats and more problems again and again and again and again, because that's a beautiful idea. Just like every move must in one way or another attack or bother him. And when you do that, I guarantee you, so like this is going to be an excellent pressure. Beautiful. So, actually, let's take a look. After this was done, apparently black's got a huge problem. He doesn't have much of an easier way to go about this. So what does black play? Okay, so here we go. In this moment, black played with knight of the b6 here. So he's actually doing a fairly good job, I'm guessing. So he could focus his attention on bringing up the most likely we could say, like that knight. And if it goes to the d5 spot, I feel like he's gonna be all right. It's a stable position. So what do we do next? How to plan it? I believe that it's a very important position, which we don't actually get to have a quick tactic. Not in here, at least. Not right now. So what do you do in a position like that if there's no fast tactic or fast complication? My suggestion is look at what's missing. See, I always get to have that suggestion, but the problem is that for most players, they don't know what is missing in the position. So, you've got to think about the backside pieces. You've got to think about the things that are really not in the play, and yet you need them. Like in this case, it is a brilliant idea to bring over the rook. We get the rook in. We've got the chance to probably think about knight to the e4. We have the rook, we got the knight, we got the rest of the pieces. They're all up into play beautifully, affecting each other. So black played knight a4, hoping for a trade. Of course, white did the trade, and now it's a question of how to continue because we have obviously a very beautiful position. Everything looks good, and so what is wonderful about that? So what should white be doing? Pressure against f7 definitely matters. The e6 that we've got too is a great idea. It's a wonderful thing to do. And now white plays alongside king h1. Not just because of the extra pressure that we would like to keep and we'd like to take away the king from the possible danger, but also because of the fact that there's nothing black can do. So remember, when you are at that position where your opponent's behind, not having any possibilities, make the waiting moves. Make those gradual reinforcing moves. In Sicilian, if you find a way to open up the position, those moves are going to be right next to the attacking. But I suggest that you use that window to make these reinforcing moves happen. Bishop c5, knight takes d6. That is the way on how white punishes black. Takes, queen takes a4, queen b5, queen g4. There, takes. We got attack on h8, threatening checkmate on f7, and so now after rook takes a8, bishop takes f8, queen takes h7, it's all over. So, I mean, what a couple of checks happen, and then black's in trouble. What I love, I'm going to tell you this, what I really, really love about this position, about this game, is how it was all set up. It's really not about big tactics. One of the best ways to fight this opening is to play it more positionally, really. Because when you get to play it more positionally, you get the chance to set up whatever is most needed so that the tactics could work. And then we just make it work out there. It's a perfect way to follow, and it's great. Okay, and that's a very nice way to go. Let's take a look and see actually what comes out in another game that you could use as a pattern to exploit the opponent's bad opening. And the reality is that with all those sequences happening, black was never ready. But then in the next game, I would like to show you something quite different. This was a game that I find particularly instructive for a number of reasons. Most importantly, it is the pattern. Okay, the pattern is what really kills it in this game, and it was that pattern that I really loved, actually, as it comes. The game was played between Ivanchuk, Yurin Polgar versus Vichy Anand in Dos Hermanos, 1999. And it's a wonderful example of what to do when your opponent does not follow the right opening principles in Sicilian or any other opening. In this game, Polgar was actually playing very strongly. She started off with a pretty good opening. Everything went fine. The bishop on the e3 was all set. Now, what really comes off is that after the move of bishop to the e3, black, there's g4, pawn to e5, and ultimately after that move, white plays the move of knight to the f5. Okay, so this is very, very interesting. And, actually what's coming up in this type of position is white is ready to sacrifice. This is very, very important. So what we can do in this type of position is that number one, very, very valuable idea. If the knight f5, g6, we can do the move of pawn up to the g4, g5. G takes f5, e takes f5. We very importantly, we sacrifice a piece just so that we could keep the opponent on the backside defending, and it's a wonderful possibility. Or, actually, this is a great way to go forward. Because after continuing with the move of e takes f, black could do the move of pawn up to the d5, and, now we've got the idea of playing queen f3. It's really interesting. It's all about the pressure. If you think of it, it is never about how the position looks. And it may look good, it may look bad. It doesn't matter. The idea being is that you just want to keep the extra pressure going. Very, very valuable thing. And so, actually after the move of g5, g takes f, white plays with the move of e takes f. Then black does the move of d5 out there. Brilliant. See, we've got this type of possibility. We could do it this way, and see what you can do. First and foremost, you have to not worry about material. All you'd like to be doing is to consider challenging or attacking or pressuring. So after d5, and actually, white plays the move queen to the f3. d4, long side castles in this position. You can take a look at how white is doing it. He's doing it really subtle. Well, subtle is actually very important, because then you get to also realize the fact that not only the black is going to be terribly down and behind in development, but it is actually going to be about making sure every move we do increases the pressure and makes the attack stronger and better and more powerful, while black has nothing to develop with. See, this is the truth with the Sicilian. If the action starts too early, black's going to be in a big trouble. And it does start quite a bit early here, which means that white's now having the rook into the play, he's having the extra pressure, and black is horrible in that moment. Okay, let's take a look what happens next. So, knight bd7. You see, Anand was actually knowing that he has to complete his development. See, and what should white do right now? This is a very, very strong question. So, number one, what we've got to do is focus on consolidating. See, not many chess players would ever think about consolidating, because usually consolidating is a bit slow. It's not that aggressive. It's not that brilliant. And yet, this is the kind of position in which consolidating is helping white to get an incredible advantage. Now let's talk a bit about how does he do that. The move that actually is all about is ultimately continuing with the move of bishop to the d2. We get a simple move, we have everything under control, and then you can realize that now there's nothing. There's no way in how black could even take the c3, which is really important. And so this is a beautiful way to go forward. See, like number one, you want to consider expanding. Bishop takes the c4, and bishop takes c3. We've got f6 to attack against. We've got that type of possibility of e5 to pressure against. It's a really wonderful resource. Most of the times, it is all about one thing: pressure. And when your pieces are so much more active than the opponent, the pressure is actually rather easy to make. You may find that incredibly interesting to know, but it is really that. The pressure is very easy for white in this position. He doesn't have to worry about. And see, let's take a look. After that move, what black did was a castling. This is actually a mistake. Let's see why. So now black castled. Mistake because after that white plays g takes f, queen takes f, queen e3. And you realize suddenly that if black plays this, there's f4, queen b6, queen g3, lining up the queen, pressuring immediately versus the black pieces. It's a really important thing to understand why black kind of loses it. It's not so much because, he's good or bad. That has nothing to do with this. It's really much more because white is better prepared. See, when you are successful, one of the things that you'd really want to do is to make sure you've got pieces that set up the plan. You want to be able to go forward. You want to be able to realize all those forces into the play position. It's a good setup. We also have this interesting idea because then now white's got this activity against the e5 and has also got the opportunity to play with, just excellent pressure against the e7. So, okay, let's take a look and see what happens next. All right, after the move queen to the g3, then obviously black's got quite a bit of a problem. And, of course, in this moment, black plays with queen h6, and then white plays rook takes to the d6. And this is a great way to play it. Beautiful position, and now with the rook to the d6, we see that subtle idea that if black captures on d6, there's going to be the move queen takes to the g7. It's a really great idea. If black plays f6, and this is a really interesting thing to do. After the move of f6, black plays with bishop to the d2, white plays pawn to e4, And now white plays bishop c4. It's a perfect possibility. We've got the rook and the queen. We've got the extra pressure out there. And that's a wonderful setup. One of the real things in a position like that is just getting the option to advance out there and hold the opponent under pressure. With g7 being under pressure, black's obviously behind. Most of his own pieces are down there. Terrible. And white actually applies more to that. The more we apply pressure towards this, the stronger it's going to be, and it just keeps getting better and stronger and more powerful as we go along. Remember that oftentimes it is going to be just about that. Can you get your pieces the freedom and opportunities that they need in order to attack? It's about that. Pressure him. In Sicilian especially, it is that little secret that makes the game so much bigger for white. It's wonderful, well played, and really beautifully executed. What about black right now? Can he do anything about this? Not really. No. That's the problem. The pressure is there, the problems are big, and black certainly isn't in a condition to resolve them, so he kind of loses. What I really find most fascinating about these kind of positions is how you could almost instantly build up your position and grow it. All you have to do is not to forget that the leverage you have is not within the threats. I mean, in some ways within certain threats, but it's mainly because of the pressure that every piece could create versus the opponent. And if you have that, this pressure is going to grow, continue becoming stronger and bigger and more powerful, and your position will continue to be more ambiguous. This is it. So these are some of the most effective ways on how you can kill the Sicilian. I hope you find it useful.